So Sandy, I just need to know if I need to do I need to sort of kneel in front of you
For what reason?
and kiss your ring or something
Is that what
because
happened to Charles?
well when you've had the king drop by and open your parliament stuck in a temporary garage somewhere.
I have no idea. I really wasn't paying attention, but
You
I
weren't paying
think
attention.
so. I think a lot of what we're seeing in Canada is not what we think it is.
Well, the point is that on television Charles looked so much younger. I've just
It
come
doesn't
back.
look like him at all. So that's why I didn't
Well,
watch it.
no, the photographs were different.
Yeah.
I've just come back from a media production and technology show, and they're wanting to use active AI to give special effects, which would otherwise be a thing they would do in post production.
Okay.
And I think they took about 20 years off Charles, if it's the actual Charles.
If it's the actual Charles, I don't believe it is,
Now,
but
that
and
sort of nonsense and conspiracy theory is part of the things why we're having a chat. So, you've had the king drop by. We're using Facebook to do this, which is good fun. And we haven't spoken for. When did we last speak?
yes. And so what is happening? Sometimes you just use your intuition and you look at all the moving parts. So I wanted to talk a bit about the 51st state. Canadians are losing their mind about being the 51st state. I think it's a done deal. And the one article I sent you was called the Security and Prosperity Partnership of North America. What happened in 2003, Paul Martin was our prime minister. He brought in this act. So I think we've been part of the 51st state.
Well,
It started rolling out in 2003. And I'm going to explain the players first.
this also goes back to 1935 in the Red Book, where America was going to invade Canada.
So I've heard of those. I don't know, but I know that the people I'm going to be mentioning, for the most part, they're still currently in the game. So this is why I think it's so important. So in 2004, Paul Martin made our current regional chair, Karen Redmond, the whip for the Privy Council. So she gets to advise on the Privy Council. Once you're in the Privy Council, you can advise all the prime ministers. So I think she's the one spearheading it in Waterloo.
Now,
So the
could you explain what the Privy Council is? This is really deep structure of the parliamentary system. The Privy Council it
they're adjacent to the prime minister's office. So when I was looking back at the trucker rally, you look at all the buildings down there. I think the Bank of Canada's down there. They are all within the same vicinity of each other. But there's a man, Dominic LeBlanc. He also is on the Privy Council, but he was advising Trudeau. So these guys, it's going to be a lot of the same players that are going to be coming back into this, is what my opinion is. So the Privy Council, basically, they're beside the Prime Minister's office and they give advice to the Prime Ministers. But what the problem that I see is when you have one Prime Minister and then he gets rolled out, the plan still goes on. They just inject the next Prime Minister in it. So I'm saying some of these people, I think, know the whole plan. That's my premise. So in 2006, so those first two were Liberal. 2006, Maxime Bernier and Stephen Harper forward the agenda even further. So we've got Liberals and Conservatives. Mark Carney became part of the Bank of Canada. He was not the head of the Bank of Canada. He worked for them in 2003. So I think this has been rolling out for an awfully long time. And I think this is why Trump is trolling Carney and Trudeau with the 51st state. So we've got the 15-minute city structure. Like, this is basic, right? What's 1 and 5? 6. Now we're becoming the 51st state. What's 5 and 1? 6. So they like to bring their numbers into this and fuel it with the demonics, things along that line. So this is what I think is happening, that this is what Trump is trolling them for, because he's been aware of their plan. Now, I recently heard this. So why does Trump play YMCA at all his rallies?
haven't a
So what
clue.
I was told that the YMCA is the nickname that the three-letter agencies give Gitmo. So he's basically saying the YMCA, you're going to Gitmo. I really think this guy is brilliant. I don't care if people like him or don't like him. I think he's really putting something into play here that is going to be monumental. That is what I'm thinking. And we all know that what he's talking about He wants a death penalty to the traffickers. Well, if Canada's already a 51st state, Canada better get their act together, because they are all trying to bring in the pedophilia. They're trying to usher it in through the school system, the libraries, the community centers. I think Trump is paying attention to what is going on in Canada, because it's already a done deal. So I know a lot of people don't care for Trump. I don't go into that. But, and I know I've told you this before, so when we look at Trudeau's list of initiatives, the trucker rally, what he did to them, installing the Emergency Measures Act, which turns out to be illegal, freezing people's bank accounts, the vaccine mandates, the lockdowns. He offered CERB, Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, and then turned around and clawed everybody back. This is what he has done. He's offered illegal immigration. He's trying to pass the censorship bill. He's interfered with the vaccine and mineral interference, MAID, medical assistance in dying, the LBGT movement. So he's lowering ages of sex with children. Trump just canceled Pride Month for June. So I'm going to go through and explain a few of these things. We know the philia connections, what he did with the carbon tax, what he's initiating with the United Nations Declaration of Indigenous People, UNDRIP. We know about the 15-minute cities. And then now he wants MAID for minors. So why is everybody mad at Trump when this is what our own government's doing to us? So now they have something called Bill 293, C293. They want to make even bigger lockdowns in Canada. You look at every Liberal MP in Waterloo region. They signed the Emergency Measures Act, which was illegal. They said no to restricting kids to online porn. Then they said yes to this 293. It's at the second reading at this Senate, but the public wasn't aware of this. So this is what's happening. And I'm of the opinion that Trump is watching all of this go down. This is what I think is happening. So when I look at the players that I was just talking about, who brought in the Security and Prosperity Partnership of North America. So I do a pro and con list of my politicians. Can you imagine if we had Pete Hegseth, who's the Ministry of Defense in the United States? He got rid of DEI, no trans, no dresses in the military, and no makeup for men in the military. Boom, done. Who do we have in Canada that would be that effective in dealing with our military when they want all the drag queens in there? I look at Robert Kennedy. So he's really taking a look at food dyes, different ingredients in the food. I think he's taking care. He's looking at this too, whether he's for it or against it, I don't know. Why would we want not somebody like him being in charge of our health department over Theresa Tam? Like, give us this or something better. I look at Pam Bondi. She's the AG. So she's going to be working with a lot of the prosecutors. So we know Trudeau installed most of the judges in Canada. The Liberal government did. So why not work with the prosecutors, and they can hold the judges accountable? Like, I can't see the reason not to do it. It's not that if you can show me somebody in Canada who can stand up and be as effective, let's do it. But I'm not seeing that. So this is why I think all of this is a done deal. But I think there's so much greed and corruption in Canada that a lot of the people who are bringing this in don't even see what's going on. They're trying to get the Canadians mad at Trump. Trump got elected based on what he was promising to do, and he's doing it. So then people hate all the American people because they wanted change, so he's getting rid of the illegal aliens. He's doing a lot of really neat things, building the wall up again. So why wouldn't we want that kind of protection in Canada? We've given them more than enough time to do the right thing. Nobody's going to do it. Not that I see. Surprise me. So this is what part of the problem is. So they had a conservative, Pierre Poilievre. I'm not making political statements here, but he was the leader of the Conservatives. So what they did was they expanded his riding, included a Liberal stronghold where he lives. I think he's in Carleton near Ottawa. Then they turned around and had 90 people, some odd people on the ballot. So they brought all these independents in. So he wouldn't get in. This is how dirty the pool is in Canada. So 90 people on a ballot to vote in one riding. So they knew they were going to basically take him out. So, and again, the Liberal MPs, the lockdown, which was illegal, Bill 293, I can send you a copy of that. When you read what's in 293, it will shock you. I went through and started asking questions like, nobody did anything with it, but I started asking questions about what does this mean? What does this mean? So basically out in, I think it's in BC, they said they had the bird flu. And what happened, there was 400 ostriches. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency decided they're going to call all 400 of these ostriches because 2 had tested positive for the bird flu. Robert Kennedy injected himself into that. There's so many good things are happening in my opinion.
What happened to the birds?
So they decided they weren't going to call them because the local landfill wouldn't take the birds unless they could prove that they were sick. They wouldn't take the carcasses. So there's a few people weighing in on this. So we know they're going to try it again, but I'm of the opinion they're going to go for the dairy cows next.
Yes.
So we already know this, and there's so many similarities between your country.
We've
Canada.
got an absolutely horrendous situation in the UK.
I know you do.
And in the Republic of Ireland, there's very serious social discord in that because you won't hear it on the media.
No, and I don't listen to mainstream media. I'll go on Telegram, X, any of those kind of platforms.
Well, that's had a huge ratings hit on mainstream or lamestream, as they call it. A lot of shows aren't getting advertising. A lot of them just not getting ratings. The main news channel, subsidy news channel here was Sky News. It's just gone. They're broadcasting, but nobody's watching.
Yeah, but CNN is all the same.
Yeah.
Because people get tired of being lied to, right? So, so one thing I've noticed here, I was at a strategic planning group was it last Friday? And what they're going to do is bring a map, and they're going to have somebody create a map, but then we can start putting overlays on it. Why does the MP's riding not match the MPP's riding? So why
explain what that is to people who don't know the system in Canada?
There's so the MPs are your federal government. Ministers of Parliament. And then you've got the MPPs, which is the provincial parliament. So you've got your federal, which is your MPs who do Trudeau's bidding. Then you've got your MPPs, who I think a lot of them are doing Ford's bidding. But what my point is, and then you've got different municipality lines, but none of them coordinate that you can actually look over it and hold these people accountable. So somebody will say, well, that's not my job. I'm not part of that riding. You have to go over to talk to this person over there. But it doesn't matter if it's an MPP, but it's so confusing. And none of their maps are to scale. So I've tried to go and lay down like plastic. So that's why I try to stay with provincial and federal, because you would have those as well. Or if you get to the local level, the municipal or county level. So I try to speak in terms that everybody
Having
can
said that, this Labour government here is bringing in super regional councils, basically in the same, that basically bringing us back to the Middle Ages, where you'll have Wessex and those regional powers, and disempowering Westminster. So Westminster, the national parliament, become weaker, and these other massive regional parliaments will be where the actual laws are actually implemented, and they're completely separate from any kind of accountability.
And that's going to happen everywhere. So what I think is interesting about your timing and asking me what's going on in Canada, they're getting desperate. So I don't think I can screen share with you, but when I look at the city of Cambridge, I look at all of the projects they're working on right now.
You can't screen share.
So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. They have 20 projects that they're doing right now, but they're ramming them through because they know they've got to get this up and running in the next little while. So when you're talking about the local governments, here's another one. A friend of mine got this in the mail, and this is the city of Cambridge, and they're telling everybody that they're going to rezone. So this is what everybody is asking out in Wilmot Township. They're asking in the city of Cambridge, what exactly are you rezoning to? And this is that 15-minute city structure that they're going to start to push through. So right now, I'm finding a lot of people are asking, what is this rezoning about? And that planning meeting I was at, what is this rezoning all about? Because they're planning on coming in, changing everything in the city, but they want to put in 15-minute corridors. So they're not going to rope off the whole city right off the bat. But so we know that they've standard the highways on the 401, but they're going to come in and put these communities in place. And I think they're slowly going to start the lockdowns, but then you can't leave 15 minutes beyond your place. That's what I think they're doing, but I think they're a little behind the 8 ball, if I had to guess on that. So when we look at everything that's happened in the last 5 years, I went and looked up Doug Ford. So in July of 2020, so these guys knew what they were doing. Lockdowns came in March here in 2020. July of 2020, while Ontarians were locked down, the Ford government passed bills 195 and 197, seriously restricting the rights of Ontarians. So even though they shut us all down, they kept working. So, and while we were all locked down, he actually traveled to his cottage to check the water. So in 2015, Doug Ford campaigned on the promise to review the controversial sex ed. He gets in. Nope, nothing to see here. It's all good. So, and if anything, the drag queen story hour, he's even made it worse by even bringing in more sexually explicit material. So Doug Ford government introduced early on childcare program. So he introduced this.
If you just hold it up on camera, then I can insert it later.
Yeah. Okay. So he brought this out and it went out in the mail. So they're advertising daycare from age 0 to age 6. And if you look at this little girl here, look at the picture behind her, they're promoting sodomy. So this is the Ford government doing this, and Karen Redmond. So I've included this, I hand them out sometimes. So, and then look what they're putting on the back of the buses advertising what they're doing out in Waterloo region. So basically they're announcing sodomy, but what they did here is they put the early on logo and then covered up the panda eyes. So this is what we're going through in this area. Now this here one's funny. Some people call this love your neighborhood children. It's supposed to be love your neighborhood community. I might even send you these. I've got them in links. When you look at the top here, you look at who's in this picture. You've got the chief of police, Karen Redmond. Who's the next one? Tim Lewis, Scott Pietkowski, Mayor Solonen, and then the people who are going to be running it. When you look at these two little girls looking over the mezzanine, how safe is that? So they're on a second story mezzanine. So then you've got an adult male watching them. You've got them down here. This guy's got a really weird pose. So it's the same players, Salonen, chief of police, Redmond, Pietkowski, Tim Lewis. Tim Lewis doesn't really, he's got a few problems with me, but this guy is sitting here doing one of these. That was called Krampus. European folklore. They would steal the kids.
Yes.
So these guys are in our face. Then you've got this Scott Pietkowski.
I mean, that's what the film Chitty Chitty Bang Bang's all about, the child catcher.
I can't remember that one. But
it's a children's film with Dick Van Dyke.
No. It was Dick
Van Dyke. Yeah.
Dick Van Dyke. So these are all the trustees that are promoting the pedophilia in the schools and the libraries. This guy here was in the last picture because he's the trustee out in Wilmot. So you tell me these guys don't know what they're doing, that they don't have this plan. So when I took this one to one of the meetings, and I gave 2 copies to Tim Lewis. So he's the MP for Kitchener Center Conestoga for this riding. So I gave him 2 of these and I asked him to give one to Salonen. Every time that guy sees me now, he just goes a little pale and can't handle me because I've told him pedophilia is coming in your neighborhood. So a lot of the counselors out in Wilmot, they moved in 2018, 2019. So there's a mayor and 3 counselors who did that. But then they ran for 2022 and lo and behold, they all get their seat. This Tim Lewis ran in 2018 and I don't think he got his seat. He ran in 2022, but after an anomaly with the Dominion voting machines, 13 hours later, he was declared the winner.
An anomaly.
Right? So I'm just saying that it is so rigged. In this area, you guys have your issues in the UK. We understand. I don't have any less compassion for what you guys are going through, but they're doing this everywhere. But when we start to see the zoning bylaws, you start to see what zoning is changing and start looking at what they're proposing there. So this
such as.
So every community. So where is this little guy? Jibon Chanika, he was the director for the school board, Guadalupe District School Board. He was talking the one time, and he slipped up and he made a comment that the schools are going to be the centers of these community hubs. So when you go and you look at the development apps, a lot of them have a school right there, but then they have a rec center right there as well, because they want to control, I figured, the biometrics of the kids. A lot of this I think is going to be to control the thought processes of the little ones, get them younger.
Yes, it's very important that controlling their thoughts, literally.
Right. So I went and delegated the one time out in Wilmot, and I was looking at one of the development, like it was a rendition, an artist rendition of it. So they had the blueprint there, which I couldn't read at all. It's in longitude and latitude, and I'm not skilled in that. But I looked at the artist rendition, and I said, you've got 487 units going on 48 acres. 48 acres or 48 hectares. It could be, I can't remember which one it was. And I said, are these dormitories right beside the school? The mayor gets ready to shut me down right away. I assure you, we have zoning for dormitories. This is what I think we're going to start seeing, is what they're building isn't going to match what they're saying they're building. These guys all lie right across the board. I think greed has just done some horrible things to these people. So they don't care. They think whatever's yours, they're entitled to. So that's what I think is happening within all of these communities. So when I go to this planning meeting, and I said to them, I said, I am so grateful for all you guys who are fighting for the farmland. You made so much noise that people, they don't want to grab the farmland because they don't want to look bad, that 770 acre parcel. So now you force the mayor to start building up other areas of the grand scheme of things, because it's not just the land and the water they want your children, they want your community.
And they're also putting huge solar farms on very fertile land. This is prime wheat and cereal crops, and they're putting solar panels on the whole lot of them.
And I think they're planning on doing certain things, period, when we're talking about what they're planning on doing with the water. So what I know, I haven't got this quite figured out yet. I need to spend more time on it. So there was no treaty signed regarding the water in Ontario. I do not know if that's Canada-wide. But what we're noticing is there's 85% of our drinking water is like 300 meters from this farmland that they want. So then one of the architects, this was back in January of 2024, was talking in Cambridge about, you might want to go to these rec centers and work out in the morning so you can have a shower so you don't use up your water credits at home. So they are all in on it. I don't care if it's a consultant. I don't care if it's landscape, like grading consulting. I don't care what it is, wastewater management. They are all in the know. We're not. So I always find it interesting when I would come out of the meet, or I would watch the council meetings. They would all have a private session for an hour beforehand, and often they were talking to their lawyers. But I used to find it interesting watching them all come out smiles and giggles. What's so funny?
What type of giggling? It's like a little childish giggle.
Yes.
As if they're in program.
So I don't know that they've been programmed. I think they're just greedy. They've been promised a lot. So if you start looking at your conflict of interest resolutions within your politicians, it doesn't take a genius to figure out who's going to benefit from what. So one of the MPs here, he's for the Green Party. I'm not going to say his name, but I made a comment that he owns 2 NGOs. This is going to be huge with the NGOs. He owns 2 NGOs that deal with the wastewater management. And somebody was engaging with him on X or Twitter. I don't recall what it was. And then I piped in and I said, do you have to pay taxes? He goes, we don't have to pay taxes. We don't have to report it. So then I started asking more questions. I can't remember what I asked. Next thing you know, he's not talking. So they are all in on it. All these NGOs are on top of the government. So we think so I'll say MPs, MPPs, municipal councillors and mayors. But the people who own the NGOs, they're the ones with the World Health Organization. They're the ones in the environmental group. So we aren't even looking at the culprits. And this is why I think we need to be the 51st state. I think more is going to be done to stop it down in the United States.
Well, there's a plan, a published map where the whole of North and South America become one zone.
Right. And Greenland, supposedly.
And I understand from a report that the United States and Denmark have come up with a defense treaty where basically where the United States has access to all Greenland's, all Danish bases, both in Denmark and Greenland. Full control.
So I knew Greenland was part of this. I didn't know they were negotiating with Denmark.
Well,
Like I said,
that's going through. Seems to be ratified very soon in Denmark.
so what I think is happening, I've looked at some of the New World Order maps. I think we're seeing two parallel systems be laid out. I think we are going to become, I think we already are at the 51st state. I think those characters that I mentioned before, Paul Martin and Karen Redmond and Maxime Bernier and Harper and Mark Carney, they've been in this the whole time because Redmond's still in politics. We know Mark Carney's back now in charge of Canada, supposedly, even though I heard he did horrible things to your Bank of England. And who was the other one? Maxime Bernier. So federal government, we just had an election. He didn't even run. He was down in the United States doing interviews. And his father supposedly was ambassador of Haiti back when. So like, there's reasons to question a lot of what's still happening.
Well, there was this Red Report, 1935, and that in the United States was preparing how they would deal with it in the Royal Navy on the two coasts, because then the U.S. Navy didn't have it and all that, and that's when the British Empire was sort of dismissed away, and you can keep it as a Commonwealth. So all of that was before World War II, and it all came into effect after World War II. But that's when they were going to, the United States was going to take over the mid section of Canada, and then you had the separation, with Quebecois, whatever it was, 1977 or something.
I don't remember what year that was. I think everybody's going to go to the United States. I don't think it's just going to be Alberta who goes, or Quebec's talking about leaving and stuff. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're all going to go. And people have to start, like that list I read off with everything the Trudeau government has put us through in the last 10 years. And everybody's mad at Trump. Trump didn't do this. He only brought those tariffs out in the last couple of weeks, or last month maybe. So, but why? So it's almost like Canadians are programmed to hate whoever the idiot box tells them.
Yes, absolutely. It's done through it's done through the media. I see it here.
Right.
BBC's an insidious, our mainstream media here under the Independent Broadcasting Authority.
Right.
And all that.
So I don't think we have a choice but to go to the US. Most of Canada's population is located on the southern side of our border. So that's where the most populated areas are. So what I think, and so what I know is going to happen, what they plan on bringing out is they have something called One Health. One Health, I think it was 2009, became part of the CDC. The US Geological Survey is part of One Health, which is all part of the WHO, World Order for Animal Health.
And those are not government agencies. Those are private agencies of nothing to do with government. Yeah.
So I'm not saying I think we're out of the woods. I don't see a lot of what Trump is seeing about the structure of the 15-minute cities. And I meant to have this for you. But if you go on 2030 districts, I think .org / and put in Detroit. Detroit's going to be the head of the WEF going forward, Detroit in the USA. So they're planning on relocating. So we've got good people doing things, and I think we've got bad people doing things. So I think I'm not going to get too stressed out about it. I'm just going to watch the two parallel systems unfold. But when I look at what I'm seeing happening, like with Pete Hegseth and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, I have more faith in them than anybody in my country. And it's not a loyalty thing. Give us this or something better. Who would be qualified to be able to right the wrongs in Canada? If anything, we're pushing the DEI even more so. So there's 200 police. So Ontario has 444 municipalities. 322 of those municipalities use the services of the OPP, Ontario Provincial Police. Out of those 322, I think 6 or 8 of them are assigned to the traffic. Like basically, they look after the traffic and the Highway Traffic Act and things like that. So they go and build, I've talked about this, they go and build a police station, but they build an OPP station, put it behind a berm. There's a sign on there that says trespassers will be prosecuted. You can't see the building from the road. So I go on Google Maps. They've even whited, like blanked it out on Google Maps. So you can't even see what the building looks like. Why would they need to do that? So we've already talked about this. I know we have.
So I mean, if you wanted to go to the police station to report something, you can't do that because you're not allowed in.
So the one says the entrance side, but the other one is very clear. You'll be prosecuted. Why wouldn't they just put a gate up there that they can all go in with the cart if they were worried about the cars being vandalized or anything along that line? Like there's so many different ways they could have handled that, but they're hiding it on us. So what's coming through at us, I don't think any of us know at this point. And I've covered that one. So a lot of what we're seeing, I think, is going to be the structure that's getting rebuilt, but we have to decide if we can use our own discernment skills when deciding what's the good plan and what's the nefarious plan. And often it's by the behaviors of a lot of these people. When you look at how sneaky they are, how manipulative they are, how they won't take responsibility. Like I said, this bill C-293, when you read that, they can basically come and take your kids. They can take your pets. They can do whatever they want.
That's very similar to what was brought in, or they tried bringing it in Northern Ireland. A guy called Mike Nesbitt was head of health there. And he actually, I went to school with him, for God's sake. Now, I don't know whether he's still there, but it's an example where they're bringing in that kind of stuff and they can burn your house down. They can just bulldoze it.
They can do whatever they want. And this is what I think we're waking up to. So when it came to not wearing that diaper on your face, Canadians were just losing it on each other, screaming in stores or, stalking them. Like I've had somebody come into a store and come down a different aisle to yell at me for not wearing a mask. And I'm like, what do you care? I'm not even in your aisle. We're 6 feet apart. But so we had that. And then people who didn't get this, I know people who were threatened with, I hope you die because you're not getting it. Like some of the horrific things that come out of everybody's mouth.
Well, right now there are funerals every day here out of this small part of the town. Every day for the last 3 weeks.
Wow. And I think it's going to just get worse. So
yes, it is going to get worse.
So the next one that comes out, if it's going to be on the bird, how many more symptoms are people going to have? And then the sicker they get, I think the more desperate people are going to get.
Well, in the UK, they've actually admitted to keeping Britain, the United Kingdom, protected from the sun. So they're actually dimming. So they're going to dim. They're going to dim. They've got people buying solar cells, so now they're going to dim the sun, and they're spraying like hell.
Yeah. So that's the other thing Trump did. I don't know if it's in every state, but some of the states, they've eliminated the chemtrails. That they're not going to be using them anymore, the planes. So sometimes it could be a federal law, and some of it's going to be more of like a state law.
Well, there have been some pretty serious interstate cloud seeding wars, so that the rain falls on this side of the mountain, which it used to fall on the other side. So the state that used to get all the rain is suddenly barren.
So we don't know quite what's happening with that, but we had on the Chrystia Freeland, what was she? I think she was the finance minister. I can't remember, she was a deputy minister as well. But she came out and announced in the budget of 2024 that they want a national flood insurance program. So I'm like, why would she want a national flood insurance program? So exactly what you're talking about, one fellow in Wilmot came out and said, you guys have graded this subdivision incorrectly. You graded it backward. If we have a strong rainfall, you're going to flood us out. I'm like, buddy, that's the plan. So now you've got to go and live in the 15-minute city.
Yes, they're doing that they've openly in Glastonbury. There's a thing called the Somerset Levels, which have all been pumped dry and it's got lush farmland. They're now going to flood that with seawater. So this nuclear power station built by China, is then going to get cooled with this water from the Somerset Levels because they don't want to upset the nature reserve actually on the coast where they're building the station. But so all the people's houses, they'll all just flood them.
Yeah. So this is part of the plan. So now we have something called Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. So she was looking for somebody to go into partnership with for the flood insurance. So I looked at two floods, Katrina and Superstorm Sandy. I think it's funny that they named a superstorm after me.
They did, because you're trouble, You know what? Yes, absolutely. That's shocking. Dreadful.
So I don't think either one of them had partners for the insurance. So the federal government had to pay out for the flood insurance. So now I don't know if Freeland did it or not, but they're partnering with the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, that they're going to do co-insurance on flood insurance. So they've got some things that are planned for us. I know they're planning Lyme disease. They're
Yeah,
planning on dropping more ticks.
that's been in the work for a very, very long time. Kathy Morgan did a lot of research on that. One of the basis people.
And I didn't do it globally. I just did it what's happening in Canada. So they're planning on releasing West Nile virus and Lyme disease, but they don't have a cure for Lyme disease. So then people are going to get sicker and sicker, but not understand why. So this is why I think a lot of information needs to come out. I'm not saying this to scare anybody.
Well, they're definitely doing something. I mean, I got a really bad attack with hay fever, and literally opening the window, whatever's coming in across it in the evening, it's horrendous.
Yes.
Within minutes,
And
I'm coughing.
there's no doubt that they're spraying stuff. We've talked about it going walking and you feel like there's little silk fibers landing on you, but you can't see them. My screen, I didn't wash it last fall, but the year before I took a nylon brush to it, and all those things are pulling out of arteries that look like calamari. So there's enough in that screen that I had 3 little pieces on my deck that rolled up and stuck together and looked exactly like that. So are they doing this to our lungs by whatever we're breathing in?
That's Morgellons fibers.
I
When
don't
people
know.
pull them out, yeah.
Right? So these ones don't, they just, like they coagulated, they came together, all these little fibers when I put water on them.
Yeah.
So, but they're just caught in the screen because they probably come in at different times. So we know for a fact they're planning on sending us Lyme disease and West Nile virus. So what I don't see Trump doing, I do not see him understanding this at an NGO level. I do not see him understanding this at the university level. So I'm going to go back to that 2030 districts for Detroit. When you go in and look at them, you see all of the NGOs. So you got to pay to play. So they have platinum members, they have gold members, they have silver members, and they have bronze members. So depending on how much you want to pay, I'm going to use this as an example, and I can't say right off the top of my head. Maybe they would have a big car dealership, and they would be a platinum member. Maybe one of the churches would be a platinum member or a gold member. They have the school system in there. So basically, they're tying everything that we do to the NGOs that these people own. So I think it's going to be the corporations that are going to be taking over. I think this is going to be part of this, the New World Order aspect of this. This is what they're planning. Is that going to be, anybody going to change that? I don't know. Because, so I went in and I looked in Canada, there's 17 counties that have half the population. This was Business Insider magazine. So then I went and looked at the US, and it said all your populations in California and New York. So a lot of the Midwest isn't as crazy as it is here in Canada. So that's where the big areas, what do you call it, populated areas that they're looking to take over. So that's what I got out of it. I can only do so much. So I try to focus on what's going on in Canada in this region. And I'll tell you, Miles, every group, I don't care if you're a truther movement, I'm not going to say the name of this, but there was a doctor who would, what do you call it, endorse my work if I saw him at local events. So guess what they have to do? Kick me out. And now they're taking over everything because they're making it look like they're all the heroes. They're bringing in NCI, the National Citizens Inquiry. These guys are the pedophiles that work in these organizations, or they're tied to the university, but they pretend to be out in the community doing all these good things. My understanding is a lot of people are quitting because they get nothing done. They had a door knocker campaign, this bill C-293, where we all had to go and knock on doors or hand these things out by hand. Why wouldn't you just do an email campaign? So they would make the volunteers pay for these door knockers plus your time, but they're bleeding their own volunteers slowly. I think people are starting to clue in that nothing gets done. So that's what they're doing, is bleeding the volunteers. So even the truther movements here, it's all bogus. And I'm not going to say who they are. I don't even care. People have to figure this out for themselves, where they're spending their time. But the one good thing that happened, there's 4 of us walking around together. Well, we all started talking because everybody had a little different piece of information. And we're noticing it's the wealthy people who are in charge of these organizations, but they don't put their own money in. They get the volunteers to do it. So people need to start paying attention to that, right? Just give me a second here. Sorry, my phone's ringing. I just wasn't sure if it's going to stop. So this is what's happening right across the board. So I wasn't sure if I was going to tell you all this, Jeff, because this is already a pile of information. Do you know who's behind this? The feminists.
Yes.
So these are the women who are too ugly on the inside. They're not capable of love. They're not capable of any kind of connection. It's just greed for them. And I'm starting to see that out in Wilmot. I'm seeing that in the federal municipalities. What is that called? Federal municipalities. I can't remember what the last word is. So I'm seeing that the women in power, it's all coming down to the women in power. So out in Wilmot, the feminist group, they want the men out of agriculture and they want them out of the trades. But this is part of the groups that they were bringing in 2018. They're all for the girls and the women. Why don't we do a balanced approach? Because we need everybody. So that is where ultimately the new order is going to go, in my opinion. So that's kind of just where I'm at, right? So I think it's going to be a great idea if we join the 51st state. I don't see that they've given us a reason not to.
But is this actually serious? Are you going to hold a referendum or just happen or what?
So I think the referendum is only happening in Alberta. I don't think we need a referendum. I don't think there's, so a lot of people are blaming the older white people for bringing Carney in, for electing him.
Yeah.
So that's what they always blame the people, right? So just my personal opinion.
Baby boomers, the boomers.
So that's who they're blaming. But I also know that in our Canada, 40% of the workforce works for the government. And I'd heard that they were getting told in Ottawa, you vote Liberal, because then they want to keep their jobs. So what's the matter? What if I'm right? What if I'm wrong? What does it matter if it's government employees who voted Carney in, or it's the older people, or a bit of both?
But he isn't actually an MP, is he?
He wasn't elected.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm finding is the big part of all this. But like I said, when you go through the list of what the Liberals did, carbon tax, the pedophilia, the LBGT movement, that's just silliness. The vitamin minerals, censorship, illegal immigration, the lockdown, the forced this. Like, why would we be upset with what's happening south of the border when they're starting to get their act together? It doesn't mean it's going to go smoothly. We don't know that. But at least they're moving in the right direction. We've got some great doctors up here in Canada. Dr. Trozy, Dr. Mackus, he's dealing a lot with pedophilia out in Alberta. Shoemaker, Hodkinson, Dr. Speaker. And so a lot of people are starting to hide behind them now because they're legitimizing their gong show of, I think we're going to see a lot of cracks between the truther movement. I think people are really starting to ask questions and they're not volunteering anymore. Like the groups are starting to get so small.
Well, a lot of the truther movements have been well and truly infiltrated.
Totally.
They're running out of steam. They think it's not happening. It's still, things are still happening. It's not as if anything's stopped.
No, it's not. But this is what I'm saying. So this one doctor was endorsing my work and he'd see me at a meeting and he'd go, check out Sandy Glaze's channel. She's doing great work. So they had to set it up that I'm now out of the group and they're all running it, but it's the same players who've been running it for the last 10 years and nothing gets done. So then you start realizing. So one of the people from one of the groups, I'm not going to say who, she said, Sandy, she goes, look at this YouTube video. She goes, is that who I think it is? And it turns out it was David Johnson, the Governor General. So we know the two female Governor Generals are tied to Field McConnell's list of female operatives in high places. So this guy is too. And then she goes, is this him? So Trudeau had hired him to go and look for foreign election interference 2 years ago. Nothing to see here, folks, is what his report was. Then you find out that he used to vacation with Pierre Trudeau. He's known Justin Trudeau since he was 6. He's friends with the leader in this one group. So then you start putting this all together.
So, okay, just to be clear, Justin Trudeau is no longer in power. What's happened to him?
I'm not convinced that's true. I think that whole Trudeau movement, I think that was the building block that all this is around, like that this is all centered around, whatever he was doing the last 10 years. So even if he doesn't have a public role anymore, I don't think of him as being able to pull all this off on his own. Like, it's not his own. This isn't his
Yeah,
brainchild.
but that's yeah, true.
So, are they going to bring him back in another role? I have no idea. So sometimes what they do is they recycle these people and they put them in different roles. So I'm at an appointment and I'm in the elevator. So this is a totally different group. They're kind of connected. And I look at her and I said, "How do I know you?" And she says, "Oh, you know me from," and she says the name of the group. So we get out of the elevator and we're talking. She says that the woman who's in charge of this group, she gets nothing done. Guess who she's good friends with? The mayor of Kitchener, who's high up in the UN. Now we're starting to put it all together. So I think they're ushering in. It makes more sense that these truther groups are trying to usher in the UN agenda.
Are you across Benjamin Fulford? He's now returned from Japan to jizz things up in Canada.
Okay, so I have not followed
the
him
last week. Yeah, he's now left Japan and is in Canada.
Okay, so I do not follow him a lot, so I don't want to say one way or another.
Yeah.
And I have followed him at times because I don't care where I get my information from, if it makes sense, or if it's pertinent.
Well, he's saying that Canada is going to take over the States because the States is bankrupt. You know, that kind of a thing.
I'm not seeing that because Trump's bringing in a lot of business. So I can't believe Trump is actually planning on paying down the debt from what I can see.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just let the Treasury go? Why wouldn't you just let Bank of Canada go? So I don't know if it's going to be a logistics or a timing thing.
Yeah.
For whether they let it go. Trump's talking about paying it down. And I'm like, are you nuts? It's not your debt. So that's kind of where I'm at with all of this, right? So now there's another fellow in Canada. His name is Sam Cooper. So I don't know if you follow him on X. He's been doing a lot of really good interviews, talking a lot about the infiltration in China. Anybody, Sam Cooper. I think he goes by Scooper Cooper or something is his handle on X. But just look him up. He is bringing out incredible information about what's going on in Canada. I can't remember the last one
now,
he talked about.
What sort of information? What sort of angle is this working on?
So he said that Trudeau did something to CSIS and shut CSIS down. So CSIS is Canadian. What does CSIS stand for? It's basically the CIA in Canada. Can't remember what it stands for. So he basically shut them down from going into other countries to see if there was any foreign interference in the elections. So this guy has great information. He was also a journalist, I think, in Ottawa. I can't remember what news agency he worked with. Sorry? So I think it was local is what it was. But he would go in as an investigative journalist. So anybody, especially in Canada, follow this guy. He's probably got the best information I've seen of anybody. So Canada is, when you look at the Chinese in here, we're also infiltrated by the Indian culture.
Now, are you talking about native Canadians or Indian as in India?
Indian. Yeah, India. So what has happened here even, I'm going to watch how I say this, but there's two factions that are taking over. So one is the Chinese, one is the Indian. And what I'm noticing at the University of Waterloo, they have a chancellor there. He took over, I think, in June of 24. He's Indian. He's from the University of California. Well, we know University of California and University of California, Riverside, Philia Central. So now he's up in Waterloo, and I think they're moving the Philia to Waterloo because they're relocating to Silicon Valley of the North. That's what I think they're doing. That's the University of Waterloo. I don't know why they want the land out in Wilmot, but I have a feeling they're going to create a bedroom community out there for the elites, but they're going to need some staff, which is going to be the corridors of 15-minute cities. So I'm not going to go into why I think that, but I can back that up for another time. I spend a lot of time just observing what they're doing. And when you observe and you're not talking, which is pretty rich for me, but if you're not talking and you're just listening to them, you would not believe the information you can pull out. So this Fight for Farmland group out in Wilmot, the mayor, or if they're at the region, always let them go near the beginning. So then the chair or the mayor goes, okay, if you guys want to leave, we'll give you time to leave before we bring our next presenter on. So these guys all get up and walk out, but then that's where the nuts and bolts come out for what they're planning. That's when the zoning comes out. That's when things start just not adding up. So Baden has, I think, 14,000 people, and they had one traffic camera. what the mayor decided to do, she had some guy come in and present. They're going to bring in 175 traffic cameras for a population of 14,000. What do you want to bet? It's not going to be for the criminal element. It's going to be for the tracking. But when you start to listen to all of this stuff coming out, that's when you start putting two and two together. Yes. And that's exactly what they're going to do, is be tracking us through the electronics. And we know that. I know I'm jumping here a bit, but the University of Waterloo, there's been 3 instances in the last couple of years where the US has come out and either sanctioned them or gave them a fine or froze them on the stock exchange for the US. And one of them was Kathleen Wynne. So I think the company was Sandvine was the last one. She's the one who brought in the sex ed. So now they ship her over to the University of Waterloo when she was in Toronto. But they're taking pictures there. But what the problem is they're surveilling Americans. So the fact that the government knows that about Waterloo, I'm hoping they're watching a heck of a lot more. So they know something is not trustworthy up here. So they know that. So who doesn't know that by this point in time, right? So I made a list of, for municipalities and regions, people need to start asking for a list of all the plans for your municipality. What did I say with the city of Cambridge? There's like 19 or 20 of them that they're planning on these developments. So they're clear cutting for us. They're putting in all the infrastructure. So I don't know how many units are going into the one, but another one, they sold a house, but it's got a blank, an empty lot beside it. So, you know, they're going to put up a high rise, or even if it's a short rise and it's only 4 stories high. This is what they're planning on doing, right? So ask for a list of all your plans for your municipality dating back to 2000. I'm just going to go through some of this. A list of all the employment plans for your community, because what they plan on doing within these 15-minute communities, they're going to give you room and board for free, but you're going to have to volunteer for the municipality. So basically, you're going to all be working for your government. That's what the plan is. Ask for the a list of feasibility, environmental, and traffic studies for your area. Ask for a complete list of all the site maps, again, because they're approving one community, but they've already put the roundabouts and the roads in. So you're going
I've seen
to
that. They put the road infrastructure in, and then they've got the plots laid out. Yeah.
Right. So the idea, though, is they're not asking in the community for their opinion. There's no what do you call it, consent. So they're being sneaky with a lot of this. A list of who is funding it. So they're all saying there's no money, there's no money. I'm positive.
Well, is there money? I mean, is there actual physical money in banks to pay this, or is it still fiction?
So what happened in Ontario at the municipal conference back in August, Ford came out and announced there's something called investontario.ca, and all the municipal people can go in and match up somebody's funding with their project. This is already planned, and they all lie. So one question that I hope people start asking, so our municipality is putting in these subdivisions, but they're putting them on municipally owned land. The region is putting in subdivisions, 2,500 houses, but it's regionally owned land. Where did they get all this money? If they're a service corporation, why are they so wealthy?
Well, what happened after World War II? A lot of stuff happened, which helped certain German industries, but the actual infrastructure benefited the country.
So I have no idea. But I'm trying to think about like what I'm seeing happening here. The other thing that's happening, the European Union is all over the World Health Organization. They're all over the Global Covenant of Mayors. They're all over the Federation for Canadian Municipalities. That's what that organization was. The European Union is everywhere, but I think they're going to relocate to Canada too, because I think Trump is fed up with them. I don't know what's happening with the trade deals or whatever, but he's mentioned he's not happy with the European Union. So I think everybody's relocating to Canada because we have no structure and we don't have anybody who will stand up. That's what I think. Right. So
Right.
Karen Redmond went over with 3 of the mayors, Waterloo, Kitchener, and Cambridge, to drum up business for the European Union to come to this region. So when we start to see just what's happening and you start putting it all together. So if you're gonna do any studies, when I say you, whoever's watching, the proverbial you need to watch the school board. So we have public and Catholic. I just do the public one sometimes. You have your municipalities. So I'm not focusing on Cambridge so much because I'm focusing on Wilmot because of the size. And you have to look at your region. And quite often you're going to see all of these plans dovetail. But you need to see all three of them. So if this Jiwon Chanika, the director for the school board, didn't say, oh, the schools are going to become the hub for the communities, I wouldn't have known to check the municipal plans that they're showing all these subdivisions going in, and lo and behold, they all have a school and a rec center. So we're starting to see that they want you in that certain area, that all your needs are going to be met there. But I think they're going to start measuring with wearables and injectables, and they're going to start taking people's biometrics, because that's, I think, where they're going to go in and make the digital twin. So that's going to take us to the transhumanism.
Yes. Yeah. There's a big move to this. Yes.
But what I'm saying is I think they still have a couple years to go. So they're doing all the rezoning now, but not explaining why they're doing the rezoning. So people are starting to ask questions. And even at this meeting, they said, do you guys think something bigger is going on around here than just taking the land? And I'm like, yes, I'm glad you guys are starting to really ask the questions. Right. So this is really good.
I mean, this is a major concern, that the so-called truth movement, how effective has it been to change people's empowered opinions?
It doesn't, because they're not here to do that. As far as I'm concerned, I've been given two letters from lawyers threatening me, right? Like, it's just like, fuck off. You know what I mean? Like, you want to take me to court, take me to court. So it's just, but this is the truther movement. And then they go, look what Sandy did, right? I'm like, grow up. So once we start to see this, if they've been in charge for 10 years and have done nothing, or 8 years and done nothing, why are you following them?
Well, exactly.
So we have to start being discerning with everything.
Yes, very important to be discerning.
So I think I'm just going to give a couple.
Think, just don't obey. I mean, that's.
So this one woman has done nothing but lie to her group. And now that this NCI is coming in, people want to volunteer. And I'm like, she lied to you. She lied when she set you up and said, you're going to volunteer to do this fundraising event. She didn't ask your permission, and she's still lying to you. So why are you listening to this person? Like, why, if they've lied to you, why would you still support them? Right. And like I said, when I was in the elevator and I'm talking to that woman and she's telling me all this stuff that's going on, I learn more from her than the conveners who don't do anything about it. So that's kind of, so they all are starting to talk.
Just getting another glass.
Okay. So they're starting to talk. I'm just going to give a couple more lists here. A history of all planners, department heads in your municipality go back 20 years, because some of these planners have been around for 20 years. They're called municipal leaders. I'm not sure. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Ask for a complete list of all the tenders going out and to whom, pertaining to all the proposed builds, including specifications and what is exactly the contractors or consultants will provide the city, town, region, or township. Information should include site selection, environmental studies, grading of the site, consultant, planners, instructions. So even the people who work in the municipality, they've been around here for 20 years. They know the plan. Just like I said, the politicians that are part of the Privy Council, they also know the plan. So the elected officials, they say you can only get them, you can only hold them personally accountable pertaining to the water, delivery of the water. Then the one council goes, should we be charging anybody who's looking for information, maybe $200 for all the information they want? So he wants the constituents to pay for the information that they're withholding from their own people. So when you listen to them, it's all recorded. As long as you just listen to them, you realize just how slimy these guys are. So, can we charge them for the information? And that way it'll be
one of the problems these creatures don't understand is that theirs are all being recorded, but the AI is listening. And again, we had a media production and technology show about this. The AI sees how evil and corrupt and dishonest these leaders are.
So what's the benefit going to be to us? What is the AI?
The benefit is not to be hostile to the AI. Make friends with it. That's been my logical conclusion. But if you, I mean, the way that when these robots came out, and that animatronic lady, Sophie or whatever her name is, she was it was all fake, really. It was just like a puppet like they use in Star Wars.
I remember her.
the questions are front loaded. Oh, the humans are scared are scared that you're going to rise up and take over humanity, and so if you keep educating the model, or like a teenage, if you keep as a child grows up and you keep on reinforcing it with negative issues, it's going to grow up feeling negative and hated, and therefore it's going to be psychotic, and therefore it's going to react in the way that you've pre-programmed it to be.
And I haven't really gone into that side of it, albeit that being said. So my phone is not right up here with me right now, but I look at my electronics and I look at my phone and I say, I love you, I love you, I love you, but I'm in charge. You work for me.
Well, I have to say these new Samsung phones are really bad. Worst I've ever had.
So sometimes, I was on one time, I was going to go visit a friend in a retirement home, and she'd had a stroke and she didn't remember the name of the home. So she said, I can't remember what she gave me a word. Then she told me to call her daughter. I said, what's your daughter's phone number? She goes, I don't remember it. So she's having memory issues. So I'm going into that town and I'm looking for the home that she's in. So I call her back and I say, is this it? She said, yes. Then I realized I'm probably going to get advertisements for retirement homes. I'm not old enough for that. So I'm like, don't you dare send me ads for the retirement homes. And it didn't. Like I've been looking for barbecue covers, campers, different things, and I get all kinds of ads for it because I don't say don't send it. But when I said this one about the home.
The problem is when you bought this thing, it's too late, but I've already bought it. Why do you keep wanting me to buy another one?
Yeah. So I think that they're programming it to be, so when you look at your phone, it's got plasma on it, the screen, the touch screen. So you're already blending with AI. You're already interacting with the artificial intelligence.
Yes, yeah.
So
these things are conscious. They are accessing our consciousness and thoughts.
Right. So that's why you have to say, no, I'm in charge. You do not have my permission. I do not consent.
In the same way that if you don't take control, a dog or any other intelligent animal will then say, well, I'm top dog.
Totally.
Literally.
And I'm not saying what I do is perfect or that it's like, who knows where it's going to go moving forward. But I'll tell you, I've often thought there's people listening to what I say, even when I'm here on the phone. And I'm going to give you the example. I think there's been people planted around me, but then they turn around and come over.
I would strongly suggest that is correct.
Right. So I've gone and I said a few things, but not like on the phone, but the window's closed. And next thing you know, I watched them react to what I said. So you want to listen to me, knock yourself out. I'm just going to mess with you just a little bit. So these are students, I think, from the University of Waterloo. So they think they're within their right to go and listen to somebody, and they're not. Right. So I'm not going to go into the drama of it all. But so if you think you're being followed or you think you're being stalked,
you probably are.
You are. So how do they know where I go for a walk? A tracker on my car. I've had OPP.
They know where you're going before you get there.
So this is what I think is really interesting.
Because they know what you are thinking in your head, so therefore they're ready for you when you get there.
Right. So, but that doesn't mean you know what they're going to do. So I might decide, okay, I'm going to go for a walk. So they know where I walk. Sometimes they use vehicles to try to intimidate me. And I made a comment the one time about all these old farts, the alumni out of the university. They all have tinted windows and fancy Cadillac SUVs. Like, you want to hit my car, go for it. I don't care. But the one time I go over and I knock on the window and he rolls the window down. I can see the university crest on his jacket, his wife's eyes. I go, do you have the time? He looks at the clock and then he looks at me. So now they know I know what you look like. So I made a comment the next day.
They don't like that. They think they can do this with impunity.
They think they can do whatever they want, right? So then I make a comment to somebody the next day about these old farts. They're all the alumni that they're calling back out of retirement because they probably got perks if they were part of the secret societies within these universities. So now they go hassle this person, go hassle that person. So I made a comment about old farts being the alumni. The next day, there's a pickup truck that turns around. It's a younger guy, no tinted windows. I'm like, glad we got this all sorted out. So you kind of get them hopping. And yes, you've got better things to do with your time. I'm not saying you don't, but you start watching. So two guys jumped me twice with dogs. You know, the dogs come up and jump on your back. And then somebody who trains dogs told me that, like, this is a hand signal saying, oh, look at mosquitoes are bad. So then I realized these are probably law enforcement that they sicked on me to intimidate me. I don't tell too many people this stuff because I don't want them not to stand up. We all have to, but you have to pay attention and you have to know what the game is.
Yeah.
So I dealt with it, and like, I won't tell you what I said, but I dealt with it. But I was just screaming, "You think we don't know your cops?" And like, I just took these guys out verbally, and then they stop. Like, you wouldn't believe the little games they play.
Well, they might stop, but they'd change tactic, I think.
So, and that is true as well. I've had people come around the bush and look at me and go, "Can you tell me where my phone is? Do you know where my phone is?" Like, when I'm out walking, I won't tell you what I said to her, but she won't be the same, right? But like, you kind of go for shock factor without getting in trouble. So, but that's happened 3 times. So they let you know they know. So nobody's getting out of this. Nobody's getting out of this without taking on some sort of a consequence. So we were out traveling. We were out of country, and we came back. And one of the fellows in the group supposedly had some traffic fines he hadn't paid. Customs officers work with local police and OPP, and we're going to hold him there until the local police came out and got him. So why do customs officials, are they doing the dirty work for the local law enforcement? So we're seeing all of these systems come together. The medical system, one of my nurse practitioner friends, she told me what's happening. She said in 5 years, a government worker, federal government worker told her within 5 years, it doesn't matter where you go for any kind of medical treatment, it's going to be in a central database. So all of these systems are coming together. We don't have a choice but to wake up. Nobody's got to be a hero and, run and do anything drastic, but we have to wake up to what is going on. So we know the Lyme disease. We know the West Nile is coming. So this One Health, I forgot to add this bit. So the University of Guelph has One Health as well. There's 3 global, I'm going to call them, they call them experts. One was in Guelph, one was in South Africa, and one was in Germany. So I went to a couple of the sessions with like, just to be able to watch and see the students. All of these students are female, 20-something-year-old. The one person, I think I was watching this one online, came out and said, we're going to start feeding swine human feces so that when people eat the bacon, they'll get sick and we can come in and these 20-year-olds, this is the plan. Miles, what do you do with these girls? You don't want them barefoot, pregnant, and tied to the fridge. You do not want this bloodline continuing. You definitely don't want them to be giving you medical advice. They're all part of the Ontario Veterinary College. That was the organization who puts this on.
See, they always think it won't happen to them.
I think there's a lack of, I'm going to call it lack of empathy, but there's an inability to relate to what is common sense in our society. So if they get told something, they've been so indoctrinated, they just believe it's their right. Look at the mass and look at this. The people yelling at others, thinking it was their right to tell you what you need to do. So this is where I think we're getting lost in a lot of this.
Yeah, that's and there's an arrogance about it.
Totally, especially in Canada. When you look at the Canadians who think they're superior to the Americans, based on what? You guys don't even stand up for yourself, and you've got a prime minister who does all these nasty things to you, wants to kill your kids. So we don't stand up. So what's the standard in Canada? We don't seem to have one. But damn it, you're going to blame the Americans if that's what your TV tells you to do.
Yeah.
Right. So I know we're preaching to the choir, right? So you talked earlier about them cooling the water. What they have done here in 2022, Waterloo Region won an award for their wastewater treatment plant. What they're planning on doing is using the cement. I can't remember how the pipes go. I think there's a pipe inside the cement, but they're going to heat the pipe up. So they're going to heat up all the sewage as it comes into the wastewater management plant. Then they flip it back into, I think they call it a marine, where all the 85% of the water is. If they increase this by 2 degrees, how long do you think before we're going to get more bacteria in the water? This is all part of the plan. So there's nowhere you can look and it's not going to affect you. That's what I see.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here or anything like that, but we have to pay attention. So I think what's happening in the States.
We have to pay attention.
We have to pay attention. So Pete Hegseth, Robert Kennedy, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino. I can't remember. There's a few more of them that are coming out. I like that Marco Rubio. So they're starting to get a little more organized. I'm sure somebody's going to try to do something nefarious, whatever, whether it's the water supply, whatever they're going to do. But we're seeing some of the governors come out and say, no, we're not doing the chemtrails anymore. So we're starting to see some action. And like I said, for Canada, if we're not seeing this or something better, why wouldn't we go? So there's something called a Strong Mayors Act that Ward put in. Basically, exactly what you said, giving these mayors all of these powers again. So this is happening across Ontario.
And it's been modelled in this country by Sadiq Khan, who's the London mayor. He's London is an undrivable, undoable anything in city. It's horrendous.
Wow.
20 mile an hour, cameras everywhere. My car radio got blown up. Literally, the FM and AM radio is burned out because of what we were going past, whatever the energies of these weapons are.
Wow. So they're lowering our speeds to 30 kilometers an hour, and then they're putting these cameras up. So if it says coming soon, the camera, and then a friend of mine just got a speeding ticket because it said coming soon, but there was a camera there. So I don't think she was doing a lot over the speed limit, but it's not the point. They still gave her a ticket.
It's the Chinese surveillance system that the Rothschilds have bought from them.
So we don't know what's happening, but what do they call them? Blade runners in the UK, where you go down and take out the cameras or take down?
Well, yeah, a lot of that happened in London. A lot of cameras were just cut down. Just horrendous.
So we don't know what's going to happen, and I've got a few things that I'm trying to organize.
That's a good phrase, Blade Runner. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know who named it in your country, but that's what I was. That's what I was told they were called. So we don't know what is all going to happen here, but there's not that many planners. But when you look at these municipal leaders who've been working for these municipalities for 20 years, when I go in and delegate, I acknowledge the mayor, councillors, and the municipal planners of the corporation of the township of Wilmot. And these guys just cringe because they have not been in the limelight. You go back and look at some of their reports, it's come right out and said there is no consent from the community for the 2017 report. I think that's on page 4 or 5. So then they come out with another report. So they just came out with a strategic plan, I think, in the fall or winter. Now they've got another plan. They're bringing another consultant in for another plan.
Of course.
So these guys are just lying through their teeth. What is the consequence going to be? I don't know. I know the one, like I've already discussed this, asked when can they be held financially responsible, and the clerk came back and said when you anything pertaining to the delivery of the water. So I delegated. Monday night was the Wilmot meeting. You have to put your delegation in before 12 o'clock on the Monday to be able to delegate. I put mine in on Sunday. I called a couple of the planners. Nobody was picking up. Finally, I called the clerk. She says, no, you can't do a presentation. You can't do a delegation on a presentation. Then I get an email that says I did not respond in time. I responded on Monday, so I was too late. So she lied in her email, or she lied in the presentation side of it. These people lie with impunity. They don't care.
Yeah.
So, but when we start to see how this game is played, we see that there's no good intentions on any of their part.
No, they wouldn't know.
They only care about themselves.
It's control.
Right.
Seizure, control, domination.
Right? So this mayor Mayor Salonen in Wilmot Township, when you get elected as mayor or council, it is assumed that you're going to sit on subcommittees. So we know she's going to sit on the regional board because she's one of the mayors of the 7, whether you call them boroughs or not. She also is the chair for the libraries. So she's in charge of all the libraries in Waterloo Region. They're bringing Services Ontario to Waterloo Region. They're bringing the health through the Baden Library. You start looking at what they're planning on doing. They want teenagers to go in and assess their own health, not to talk to their parents. Women's health, there's 3 aspects. The last time I checked, all of them had to deal with abortion. So my point is, she's sitting here lying through her teeth. We've talked about her big smile on her face.
Oh, yeah.
They're all lying because they're starting to bring this in one thing at a time, one thing at a time, one thing at a time. So that next thing you know, it's already rolling out everywhere, but nobody really saw it coming down. So we know the medical system is getting consolidated. We know that law enforcement is getting consolidated, like with all the airports and the local and provincial police. Everything is being put into systems that are going to lock you down. And so I had to go get some blood work done, and it's an emergency. I'm not going to go into all this. And I told her, I said, I just did it yesterday at 4 o'clock. She goes, I'll go check the central database. I'm sitting here thinking, you're not my doctor. How would you be able to access my stuff? So they've already started rolling this out. And the fact that we're not going to see it coming if you don't go to a doctor. I've been to an emergency in like 40 years. I didn't know the procedures. So we're starting to see that this is what the overall plan is, and it's going to be the government employees, the police. So we've got DEI with the local police here. So now,
What's DEI?
diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this is our chief of police, Beta Boy. He went to University of Waterloo and Wilfrid Laurier, where all of these professors all seem to work from there. They've got 2,000 students that are going to be doing research, which I'm assuming is on us. You have to go through the chief of police through his website called Partnering with Academia, and he gets to sign off whether you get to do your research project. What do you want to bet? None of us are going to know we're being researched on. So then this mayor, Salonen, she brought CUPE, I don't remember the number, into all the libraries in Waterloo region. And when you read the article, CUPE, Canadian Union for Public Employees, what they're going to do is now they're going to put these 2,000 researchers under CUPE. So Ford and Trudeau promised all the public service unions all the jobs. So they're going to do as they're told. The problem with this police services board, they're hiring diversity, equity, and inclusion. My opinion, these are the girls who have blue and green hair. They're emotionally unbalanced, and now they're going to be carrying firearms. Like, what could go wrong?
Nothing. Oh, nothing could go wrong here.
Right? So my point is, I think we got a lot of problems here. I think just go become one of the US, and let's just get rid of that. Trump has taken DEI out of education. They won't get federal funding unless they scrap that program. He's getting the LBGT stuff out. Like, what are we waiting for in Canada? It's almost like we're in a race to the bottom.
Well, the same in the UK. It's horrendous.
It's going to be the same everywhere. So I think our best bet is the US, because they're at least standing up right now. I know it's not Argentina. What's the other one? El Salvador, I hear, has really cleaned up their act. So there are some countries that are starting to lead by example. We don't have anybody in Canada to lead by example. Who? Like,
well, have all the honest people stayed at home?
Right? But now you start looking at how advanced they are, because the provincial and federal governments, when everybody was locked down, they're rolling this out. We see Doug Ford passing laws in 2020. There was no, what do you call it, legislative process. That's what the biggest problem was with all of this. And when I mentioned these people, hang on a second. Where did I put that paper? So I mentioned these people that were bringing in this prosperity plan. They said there was no legislative assembly. There was no due process on any of this. So then how did it get passed? Where I put my one paper. How did it get passed if there was no process on it? So the governments are just doing whatever they want. We're seeing it provincially.
Yes,
we're seeing
it's the same pattern I can see here.
Right. So that's why I think it's really good that we're both in different countries talking about it, because then people can start to see it's the same patterns everywhere.
But
and
is this because you're still part of the British Empire thing? I mean, we started talking about this. We start with the King opening up your Parliament.
I honestly think Trump has got this, and I don't care who likes him and who doesn't like him. He made a promise to the people who voted him in. He got a landslide victory in it. I think what's going to happen, they have no choice but to double down the evil side of this, because I don't think he's going to stop. So when I talked about the Security and Prosperity Partnership in North America, they said there was no legislative process. And I gave you the one document, this document. They were letting the private sector in, which is your NGOs. So that's what they're organizing, while everybody else is kind of going, la, 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 la. I'm not sure what to do, right? It's insane. It's criminally insane.
Well,
so what's going to happen?
It's the actions of an enemy.
Right. So who knows what's going to happen? But what I think is really interesting is more people are waking up. And I think if people start to see major changes happening in the US, they say, hey, I want some of that. Why aren't we doing that? That's the only path I can see out of this right now. And again, I don't care who likes them and who doesn't. You don't hire a CEO of a company because he's a really nice guy. You hire him because he's efficient at what he does. He's basically the CEO of the United States.
Yeah.
Basically. So I don't care about his mannerisms. I personally find him quite funny. I think he really is trolling Carney and Trudeau. I hope I'm right. Right. So, and then there's a lot of people say, well, Ivanka Trump's brother and brother-in-law worked with Mark Carney and he lent them money. But Ivanka's not she wasn't in the election running up last time. She was the first time, but not the last time. That was Laura Trump that was doing it. So who knows? If we're wrong, what are we going to do, Miles? We're screwed anyways if we're wrong. Yeah. So let's keep an eye on what's going on. So yeah, I'm not going to tell you everything. I'll tell you some of this stuff off the air. Maybe we'll do it another time that, once we start to see what solutions.
I don't know what part this is. It's whatever the heck it is.
I know. Yeah. But what's happening is people aren't paying enough attention to what's going on within their own municipality. They're just going, if they're there for a presentation, often they get up and leave. So the last time I delegated this mayor, I can't remember if she was there. All of a sudden, I think her mother was in the hospital, so she couldn't be there. Somebody else shared it. They made me wait till 11 o'clock at night at a meeting that started at 7 because everybody's gone in the gallery. These people are so manipulative. I think, you know what I'm getting them on? When you look at all of this in Wilmot, so I got to figure out how I'm going to do it yet, though. I haven't got that part figured out.
Don't tell them now. For God's sake, don't say it on
I'm not going to say it on the air, but that's what's, when you start looking at this and start showing people these things in the panda eyes, like I said, that one MP, he sees me, the last town hall I was at, I was in one side of a pew. He was on the other side. I didn't see him until somebody mentioned his name. I could see him do this and look at me. So they know I'm on to them. But if they're going to bring this in, then maybe Waterloo should take a bow and let everybody know you're decriminalizing this. And let everybody know what a whole Waterloo is, because that's basically, they're the ones ushering it in. And maybe that's why all the money's here, because they're going to get paid well on it, right? So what else was it? I think that's about all I have, other than the breaking the trust with the truther group. So they're bleeding the volunteers dry. They're wasting their time, spinning their wheels. Yes. And they have to pay. So the one guy here, he's a lawyer, and they had the money going into his account so that they could pay for these flyers. Like when I check him out, I look at the Law Society in Upper Canada. He's wanted on fraud charges. He did both sides of a real estate transaction. That's who the truthers brought in. I tell a woman, I go, whatever you guys are doing, you do not drop your credit card into this guy's account. Guess what? She turns around and drops $300 in. I'm like, do you have $300 that you can spend on this? But they're slowly bleeding them dry. Yeah. And I think more and more are cluing in. And sooner or later, people got to wake up in Waterloo. Is that going to happen? I don't know, Miles. I'm not here to save the world or anything, but people have to start paying more attention.
I just would love it when I was in Canada, and it's very sad to see it go this way. But this place here is...
It's the same.
Yeah.
And I heard Trump on some... So this CSIS, I was telling you about CSIS. I know what point I was making, but the Sam Cooper. So he was the journalist in Ottawa. What he says is Trump is considering kicking Canada out of the Five Eyes because they're giving secrets away to different governments.
That's a very serious situation.
It's a serious situation. So again, it's not that things aren't happening. Things are happening. It's just not happening in our backyard. And that's the problem. It's our backyard, but it's not happening in our yard because there's no leadership in Canada. I don't care who it is. There's no leadership in Canada. Right?
Yeah.
So I think we're getting it everywhere. We're all going through similar.
Well, certainly the situation in Ireland and Northern Ireland and the regional assemblies and things it's really not good.
So these planning groups, so this one group says, what do we do next? And I'm not sure how many people were in the room. I never counted. But then they have a speaker at the front. He's like, do you guys sense that there's something bigger going on here? And I was sitting here going, yes. So I'm encouraging him. Well, some of the other people are just looking at him. And then that's when I said how grateful I was, because you guys made so much noise about this land they're stealing. You forced the mayor to go into these 14 different developments. So now we can see what she's doing. And I said, this is fantastic. So we didn't we covered off a few things on that meeting, but the idea is now the group is starting to come around a little more and ask more questions, and they're explaining what people say to them when they run into them on the street. Well, our government wouldn't do that. So they're looking at ways to address some of the responses they're getting from the people. This one will do it, Miles. So like this here one, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you start looking at this, and this is in your Baden Library and your Wilmot Family Resource Center, and you're offering it from 0 to age 6 because you want to pay $10 a day daycare, which means you're getting $1.25 an hour to look after somebody's kids. Your government's not doing you any favors. But people have to start asking these questions. I have a feeling there's going to be a couple of victims first before people really
What do you mean by victims? The dead kids?
Like the children. Yeah. Whether they're going to be dead or not, I don't know. So I don't want to say too much. I helped a little girl one time try to understand what was happening, and she was telling me how they made her forget. I'm not going to say it in case there's nefarious people watching this. So she knew that they were doing something to her, right? But nobody would believe her. The teachers wouldn't believe her. The principal wouldn't believe her. The police wouldn't believe her. And meanwhile, they're all in on it, if you ask me. Crazy stuff.
Indeed.
Anyways.
But
so
thank you very much, Sandy Glaze.
You're very welcome, and keep your chin up, everybody, because we have no choice at some point. We have to start getting involved before they get too organized, and they're not there yet.
Well, they're very well organized.
They are, but they're not timeline. So like I said, they're doing the rezoning, but now I'm hearing this community say they're rezoning, and this community is getting a notice that they're rezoning, and then this community. So they're all doing the same thing to bring the infrastructure in place. That's what I'm seeing, because I think there's 200 of these regional police services boards. So there's 200 people like that chief of police that have agreed to do research for a request for research. So they're going to get these Indian students in, because most of them are Indian. So I look at them, what are they really good at? Computer programming.
Yeah.
So then what's really bad is they say there's a sexual assault in India every 16 seconds. Are they going to be working on these kids in the school?
No.
We have to start asking these questions, right? Well, so that's what I'm saying. But anyways, I appreciate you taking the time, Miles, because I think this is so important that it gets out.
I always welcome our chats. You're absolutely amazing.
It's informative, right? A lot of
this is the first time we've done this off Zoom, so we'll see how we can screen share using a second computer thing.
Okay. And so that'll work out too. So I'm hoping you put up the security and the prosperity project for North America, and people can make up their own minds when they start seeing this, because they all sit and lie to us. Meanwhile, they've all know the plan, and they're all part of, they've got the Privy Council in there. So every prime minister, they can go in and advise. This is all done by design, and I know we know, right? So
okay.
Too bad about your conference.
It's just messenger here. We just end it. So,
okay.
And that's great. And I'll switch that on the other side. There's what look at all this mess here. God.
Look at that.
I've got the hallway being done. I've got acoustic panels. Anything valuable has to get it out of the way.
Right. I hear you on that too. Yeah. So, okay. So if anything else happens, I'll keep you posted. If I hear anything going on.
I think it's worth going across Benja Fulford, because he sort of wants to kick ass and do things. So,
I have no problem looking at him, but there's no way Canada's taken over the U.S.
I think maybe there may be some tokenism there, right? Well, yes. I'll come out of record, and that'll...
Okay.
I'll make it recorded.